Good morning, students. We will talk about acute and chronic rhinitis today in this lecture. We have already faced an acute phase of rhinitis in our day to day life, but it can also convert into a chronic rhinitis when there are repeated episodes of acute rhinitis. There are different types of acute and chronic rhinitis respectively. We will talk about them in different slides. Acute rhinitis is usually of three types. First is viral rhinitis, second is bacterial rhinitis, and third is irritative rhinitis. In rhinitis, there is infiltration of nasal cavity mucosa with viral or bacterial organism, and that will cause inflammation in the nasal cavity mucosa. There will be inflammation, congestion in the nasal cavity mucosa, and patient will have different rhinitis symptom. First is viral rhinitis, which is also known as common cold or coryza. It will be by different type of virus infection, which are basically adeno, picorna, rhino, coxsackie, and eco type of viruses. This infection will transmit from airborne droplets of a previously infected patient. Incubation period is usually 1 to 4 days after the infection with the microorganism, and illness usually lasts for 2 to 3 weeks. Main symptoms are nasal stuffiness, rhinorrhea, which is nasal discharge, and sneezing. Patient can have fever, which is usually low grade and with chills. Secondary infection of the bacteria can occur in this type of patient. Main organism for that type of infections are Strep hemolyticus, pneumococcus, and staphylococcus. Usually treatment is mainly symptomatic. In this type of viral rhinitis, patient will be asked to take rest, plenty of fluids, oral fluids, mainly the water, antihistaminic and nasal decongestion, analgesic for the fever. Aspirin can cause shedding of the viruses from the nasal secretion. So, patient is asked to avoid the aspirin for the fever. Antibiotics are necessary if patient have secondary bacterial infection is present. Complication which can occur in this type of viral rhinitis are sinusitis, pharyngitis, tonsillitis, bronchitis, pneumonia, and sometimes otitis media due to eustachian tube involvement. Other viral rhinitis are influenza rhinitis, which can occur by influenza virus A, B, and C. This rhinitis will have the same symptom as we have discussed previously. Rhinitis associated with exanthemas. When patient have infection with measles, rubella, or chickenpox, patient can have skin reaction due to the virus infection, and this rhinitis usually precedes the exanthema, that is the skin involvement, precedes by the 2 or 3 days. Bacterial rhinitis. In this, rhinitis occur because of bacterial infection in the nasal cavity. Usually there are mainly two types. First is non-specific infection and second is diphtheric rhinitis. Non-specific infection is because of primary bacterial seen in children. Mainly bacteria responsible for that type of rhinitis are pneumococcus, streptococcus, and staphylococcus. There will be formation of greyish white tenacious membrane over the nasal cavity mucosa, mainly over the anterior part of nose. Usually this type of bacterial infection precedes the viral rhinitis, as we have discussed previously. So patient will have initially viral rhinitis, which will be followed by bacterial infection. Second bacterial rhinitis is diphtheric rhinitis. This is usually rare these days, in which there will be infection of the nasal cavity, throat, or larynx of the diphtheria organism. There will be formation of grayish membrane on the inferior turbinate and floor of the nose. There will be excoriation of the anterior nostril and upper lip can be seen. This is a diagram in which showing there will be excoriation of the nose, formation of grayish membrane in the anterior nares, and it, as we have seen, it is a form of acute infective rhinitis. Usually at present in our India, we give children the DPT vaccine, that is the diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus vaccine. So because of widespread given of this type of vaccine, there is already decrease in the incidence of this type of rhinitis. Irritative rhinitis. It is because of whenever there is exposure of the nasal cavity mucosa to the irritative substance to that mucosa, it will cause the rhinitis. It is mainly caused by exposure to dust, smoke, or irritating gases like ammonia and formalin. Sometimes it can occur during the intranasal manipulation. Symptoms are mainly immediate catarrhal reaction, there is sneezing, rhinorrhea and nasal congestion, and symptom pass off rapidly when removal of the offending agent. Chronic rhinitis are mainly 5 types. First is chronic simple rhinitis, second is hypertrophic rhinitis, third is atrophic rhinitis, rhinitis sicca, and last is rhinitis caseosa. We will talk about them one by one. Chronic simple rhinitis. Here, whenever there will be infection of the nose in the form of acute rhinitis repeatedly, it will lead to the acute rhinitis into the chronic rhinitis. So we have already talked about the symptom and the clinical features, symptom, signs and treatment of the acute rhinitis. Whenever patient have a repeated episodes of acute rhinitis because of some predisposing factor, and this predisposing factor will lead to the development of chronic simple rhinitis. The predisposing factor mainly are persistence of nasal infection due to sinusitis or tonsillitis. There will be chronic bacterial insemination or chronic bacterial inhabitant of the in the nasal cavity mucosa or in the pharynx, and that will cause the repeated acute rhinitis. This can cause the chronic rhinitis. Chronic irritation from the dust or smoke in the occupational area or where the patient resides. Nasal obstruction due to the DNS or synechiae, those are the anatomical abnormality in the nasal cavity. Vasomotor rhinitis can develop into the chronic simple rhinitis. Endocrinal and metabolic factor like hypothyroidism, lack of exercise, diabetes mellitus and different diseases affecting different organ in the body can help in development of chronic simple rhinitis. Usually the pathology is viral infection of the nasal cavity mucosa which occurs repeatedly. It will form the during the acute infection, it will form the acute generalized hyperemia of the nasal cavity mucosa. Usually this acute attack repeated times, it will cause the chronic simple rhinitis. There is hyperemia and mucous membrane edema during the acute attack. There will be repeated attacks and it will form the hypertrophy of the seromucinous glands and increase in globulate cells. Blood sinusoids are distended mainly over the turbinate and main over the inferior turbinate. And this engorgement of the secretory glands and globulate cell will cause the increase in the secretion of the nasal cavity secretions, and that will cause the recurrent attack of chronic simple rhinitis. Clinical features mainly are nasal obstruction, which is worse on lying. Nasal discharge may be mucoid or purulent and often trickles into the throat as post-nasal drip. So patient will say that he or she has something coming into the oral cavity from the nose, like drip by drip. Sometimes swollen turbinate, mainly the inferior turbinate which impinge on the septum, will cause the headache. Swollen turbinate usually are present in the hypertrophic rhinitis and chronic simple rhinitis both. But the difference is that nasal mucosa is dull red in the chronic simple rhinitis and pits on pressure. And whenever we apply vasoconstrictor like adrenaline or noradrenaline, it will shrink in the chronic simple rhinitis. Where in the hypertrophic rhinitis, there will be inferior turbinate hypertrophy which is static in nature. So it will not shrink with the vasoconstrictor application in the hypertrophic rhinitis. Postnasal drip is the symptom of the chronic simple rhinitis. Treatment is, we have to treat the cause because there are many predisposing factors. So we have to remove the predisposing factor and it will help in removal of the chronic simple rhinitis. Nasal irrigation with alkaline solution if there are mucopurulent discharge in sinus present. Nasal decongestion help to improve the nasal obstruction and improve the sinus ventilation, and antibiotics are necessary if patient has secondary bacterial infection. Second is hypertrophic rhinitis. In hypertrophic rhinitis, there will be thickening of the mucosa, submucosa, seromucinous glands in the nasal cavity mucosa, periosteum and bone also. In the chronic simple rhinitis, there is only engorgement and of the secretory glands and globulate cell and hypertrophy of them also. But here in the hypertrophic rhinitis, there is also this mucosal, submucosal, periosteum and bone involvement. So this is the main difference between hypertrophic rhinitis and chronic simple rhinitis. The causes mainly are recurrent nasal infection in form of acute rhinitis, maybe viral rhinitis or bacterial rhinitis, chronic sinusitis, chronic irritation of nasal mucosa due to the smoking irritant and nasal drops in the form of xylometazoline or oxymetazoline nasal drops. Symptoms are mainly nasal obstruction is the main symptom. Nasal discharge here in chronic hypertrophic rhinitis is thick and sticky. Headache and insomnia can occur. On examination, turbinate mucosa is thick and does not pit on pressure. Usually in chronic simple rhinitis, turbinate mucosa pits on pressure and shrink on the vasoconstrictor drug application. But in hypertrophic rhinitis, there will be no pitting on the pressure and there will be no effect of vasoconstrictor drugs because there is already hypertrophy of the mucosa, submucosa and periosteum and bone. So the vasoconstrictor application will not cause any effect. Maximum effect is on the inferior turbinate in the hypertrophic rhinitis. Usually nasal obstruction is because of this enlarged inferior turbinate. It will also touch the septum and it can develop the headache also. Treatment is removal of the predisposing factor which are present. Reduction in the size of the turbinate. So whenever there is engorgement of the inferior turbinate or the middle turbinate, we can increase the size of the turbinate and improve this area of ventilation or the nasal cavity. This we have to remove this engorgement. So we have to improve this pathway. Whenever we make ventilation here, patient's nasal obstruction will improve. So we have to reduce the size of the turbinate. The main how we remove the size of the turbinate. So there are mainly different methods like cauterization of the nasal inferior turbinate, submucosal diathermy, cryosurgery or laser application. Sometimes it is known as turbinectomy, it can be partial or total turbinectomy. Submucosal resection of the turbinate bone can be done. So in submucosal resection of the turbinate bone, we make a tunnel here over the inferior turbinate mucosa. This tunnel will directly guide into the bone inferior turbinate, which is a separate bone from the ethmoid bone, and we remove this inferior turbinate bone. So there will be shrinking of this mucosa from here to here, and there will be improved nasal obstruction. Laser remove to remove the hypertrophy of the inferior turbinate. This is the diagrammatic representation of the hypertrophic rhinitis. In this CT scan image, you can see this is the nasal stem, this is the sphenoid sinus, is both like multiple appearance of the inferior turbinate. So in this you can see there is mucosa submucosal hypertrophy. We can remove that hypertrophy. This is a deburrer, which is a machine which uses in face surgery, that is functional endoscopic sinus surgery, to remove polyp. Here we can remove the part of the inferior turbinate and then improve ventilation pathway in the nasal mucosa. You can, this is the septum, this is the inferior turbinate or part of the inferior turbinate, and this is the ventilation pathway of the nasal cavity mucosa. You can see the nasopharynx here from this nasal endoscopic view. This is the main treatment for hypertrophic rhinitis or inferior turbinate hypertrophy. Third one is atrophic rhinitis, also known as ojena. It is chronic inflammation of nose characterized by atrophy of the nasal mucosa and turbinate bone. It can be primary or secondary due to some other diseases. Here we have already seen that in chronic simple rhinitis and hypertrophic rhinitis there is hypertrophy, but in this atrophic rhinitis there will be atrophy of the nasal cavity structures. Primary atrophic rhinitis, it has many different predisposing factors which can be remembered as hernia, hereditary factors, endocrinal factors. Usually primary atrophic rhinitis starts at puberty, more common in females, and ceases after menopause. Usually more common in white and yellow races. Vitamin A, D and iron deficiency can help in development of atrophic rhinitis. Main organisms which are present in atrophic rhinitis are Klebsiella ojeni, that is also known as Perez bacillus. Other organisms are diphtheroid, P. vulgaris, E. coli, Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. Autoimmune factors also help in development of primary atrophic rhinitis in different individuals. Main pathology is our nasal cavity has ciliated columnar epithelium, which will be replaced by stratified squamous epithelium in primary atrophic rhinitis. There will be atrophy of seromucinous gland, venous sinusoids and nerve elements. There is arthritis in mucosa, periosteum and bone, which will be obliterative arthritis. Turbinate bone undergoes resorption. Here in this image you can see there is normal side of the nasal cavity, and here you can see there is atrophy of the nasal cavity mucosa, bone and submucosal layer. Clinical features of atrophic rhinitis. Patient have nasal cavity which is filled with the greenish to greyish dry crust which bleeds on removal. There will be formation of large amount of crust into the nasal cavity, so patient will develop the nasal obstruction. This crust usually have bacterial infection, So there will be bad odor coming from that nasal crusting. But because of full crusting in the nasal cavity, patient will have also the anosmia. So patient will not be aware of his or her own bad odor coming from nasal cavity. So this type of anosmia is known as merciful anosmia. So merciful anosmia, nasal obstruction, epistaxis on crust removal. There will be a septal perforation in some of the patient when there will be atrophy of the cartilage or bone involving septum. Sometimes dermatitis of the vestibule occurs. There will be formation of saddle nose deformity due to resorption of nasal bones. Sometimes atrophic pharyngitis and laryngitis also associated with atrophic rhinitis. Some patients have obstruction of the eustachian tube which will develop the middle ear effusion and hearing impairment. Paranasal sinuses are usually small and underdeveloped with thick walls in these atrophic rhinitis cases. Here in this image you can see there is development of whitish to yellowish to greenish type of crust into the nasal cavity, and on removal of this crust there will be epistaxis or bleeding from the nose. Treatment for atrophic rhinitis. Usually medical treatment involving atrophic rhinitis is nasal irrigation and removal of crust. Alkaline solution which is made up of soda bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate, sodium chloride in the water can help in removal of the crust from the nasal cavity. 25% of glucose in glycerin solution can also help in inhibition of growth of the organism in the crusting in nasal cavity. Local antibiotic which can help in removal of organism is camicetin antiogena solution which is made up of chloromycetin, estradiol and vitamin D2. Estradiol spray in the nasal cavity helps in increase in vascularity of the nasal mucosa and regeneration of the glands. Placental extract injection submucosally can help in atrophic rhinitis. For the Klebsiella organism, systemic injection of the streptomycin 1 gram per day for continuous 10 days is helpful. Potassium iodide given orally promotes and liquefies the nasal secretion and helps in removal of the crust. Surgical treatment for atrophic rhinitis. In atrophic rhinitis, main mechanism is to decrease the width of the lateral wall of nose and septum. There is increased width between the lateral wall of nose, floor and septum. So we have to mainly narrow this cavity in the atrophic rhinitis in the surgical treatment of atrophic rhinitis. This is floor, this is septum and this is lateral wall of nose, mainly the inferior turbinate. Narrowing the nasal cavity via submucosal injection of the Teflon paste, section and medial displacement of the lateral wall or insertion of the fat, cartilage or bone under the mucoperiosteum of the floor, lateral wall and mucoperichondrium of the septum. So what we will do, we will insert the fat submucosally here, here and here below the mucosa. Insertion of fat, cartilage or bone. So it will decrease the width to this level. There is infiltration of the fat, mucosa, fat, cartilage or bone in the lateral wall of nose, in the floor and submucosa, in the septum. So that will decrease the width and patient will have decreased width between lateral wall of nose and between the septum. Another treatment is medial displacement of the lateral wall of nose can be done. Or last submucosal injection with Teflon paste. Other operations are young operation and modified young operation. Young operation, both nostril are completely closed for 6 months, and after 6 months when we open, nasal mucosa may revert to normal mucosa. In modified young operation, there will be some nostril which is kept partially open. So nostrils are partially closed, so patient can have nasal breathing. So this is all about surgical treatment of the atrophic rhinitis. Secondary atrophic rhinitis is usually seen in leprosy, lupus, syphilis, rhinoscleroma. It can occur after long-standing virulent sinusitis, radiotherapy to nose in the nasal cavity malignancy, and whenever remove excessive surgical removal of the turbinate in the hypertrophic rhinitis can lead to atrophic rhinitis. We have already seen that in hypertrophic rhinitis we remove this turbinate from here to here. When we remove the excessive removal of this turbinate, there will be increased width between septum and lateral of nose, and excessive removal of turbinate can develop atrophic rhinitis. Rhinitis sicca. Rhinitis sicca is usually seen in patients who work in hot, dry and dusty surroundings like bakers and goldsmiths. Here, it is confined to the entire one-third of the septum, floor and lateral wall of nose, where outer epithelium is metaplased to sinus epithelium. There will be formation of crust, and on removal of crust there will be bleeding. So here main cause is hot, dry and dusty environment. So treatment is correct this surrounding, and patient moves himself from that environment. Patient will have resolved in the clinical features. Correct surrounding environment. When there is formation of crust, we can apply the ointment and do line nasal douching as seen in the atrophic rhinitis. Last one is rhinitis caseosa. This is uncommon condition, unilateral, mostly seen in males. Here nose is filled with offensive purulent material, usually from the chronic sinusitis with epicyclic material. So whenever a patient has sinusitis, there will be impaired sinus drainage from the sinus ostium. This sinus ostia will be blocked for chronic time, and it will cause accumulation of purulent material which is cheesy, and it will develop rhinitis caseosa. This is usually involving unilateral side and mostly involve maxillary, sphenoid, frontal or ethmoidal sinus. Here, because of chronic infection of bacterial organism, mucosa becomes granulomatous. So when we do endoscopy, we can see glaucoma formation over the sinus mucosal wall. We will go for functional endoscopic sinus surgery, and we will start the drainage of this nasal sinus cavity. On drainage of affected sinus, remove the material granulation from the cavity. We can also use oral antibiotics, nasal and alkaline nasal douching. Prognosis is good in this type of cases. So this is all about rhinitis caseosa and types of acute and chronic rhinitis.